Well, hello. I am delighted to welcome a very special guest, Mr. Simon Firth, on the tracks of 007. Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me and tell me about your brand new book, which is one of many books. You're one of the men behind the longest running James Bond fan website on the internet, aren't you?
The website, yes, I'm a part of it. I just do the books, though. The actual website on the tracks of 007.com, that is nothing to do with me. That is entirely Martijn Mulder's concern, invention, maintenance, upkeep, and everything else. I'm just the words guy who puts words to books.
And a very damn good job of it you do as well. So, I mean, we're here to chat about your latest book, which I'm so excited about. It's On the Tracks of 007 in Jamaica, which seems like the perfect. I mean, I know this is your 7th book.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, which I mean, and this is where it all began, isn't it? This is so exciting.
It is, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like it should be the natural culmination of that which I was aiming for. But actually, I did go into it with actually a little bit of trepidation.
Now, why is that?
Well, honestly, I thought that possibly there were already one or two, or indeed enough books out there about either Ian Fleming in Jamaica, Matthew Parker's Goldeneye, or James Chapman's The Making of Dr. No, and also with various friends who wander over to go and have a look at Goldeneye in Jamaica. There are not one or two videos out there. And I just did actually. I wondered whether, in fact, the world needed such a book, but I spoke to a few people, and Martijn Mulder said, "Look, Simon, there may be some books out there about these subject matters, but none of them have been done the way we do them." And so that gave me some sort of fortitude to go into this.
That's what I'm. The amazing thing about the internet is, all of us James Bond fans, we created a community, and all of us seem to like gravitate towards separate areas. And it's like you talk about Simon Firth. He's the guy who writes the books that if you want to know about James Bond in Italy, James Bond in France, James Bond in the Côte d'Azur, then that is where you go. And so it's amazing. You've created. I can see why there is value in having this book, because you've done such an amazing job with the books that have come before.
I believe so. Yes, actually, just you raised an important point and an interesting point about an interest within an interest. Obviously, as the world of James Bond gets broken down into its incremental areas of interest and fascination, be it cars, watches, gadgets, clothing, socks, the flooring of James Bond by way of abstract.
The flooring is my favorite one,
isn't it? It absolutely. I did not see that coming, but actually, before I got into the writing of the books for Martijn Mulder, my interest within an interest was actually the film posters, the lobby cards, the marketing material, the press kits, and it is that which sort of for a few decades actually kept me mostly sort of off an interest within an interest. It was definitely the posters and promotional material.
That's so. I mean, tell me about how did you get into being a fan of James Bond and then creating stuff about James Bond?
Oh gosh, okay, that is a loaded question. I mean, I guess looking at the state of both of us, we are men of a certain vintage, and I think that, with people like ourselves, most of the introducing would have been done or introduced by our fathers. On my side, it was not on one but two occasions. My dad gave me the call to arms from downstairs in the lounge. I think I was upstairs in the room, and he said something like, "Son, you need to come down and have a look at this." And what this was, first off, was Dr. No, and secondly, it was Thunderball. And I think thereafter we went for a family trip to go and have a look at The Spy Who Loved Me in the cinema in 1977. And I think from that point on, things just sort of developed naturally, and it has stayed with me ever since. In terms of how I'm doing what I'm doing right now, I mean, I was always interested in writing or wordplay, and a fascination with people who were able to make words dance and such like, but I never really found a reason or a way to actually play with this other than just online articles and reviews of this, that, and the other. And to be honest, of those, there are not even too many, so even that was not prolific. But it really started actually in 2019 when I was working for a UK mobile telephone company who, even before COVID, was promoting remote travel, or sorry, remote working, sorry. And I just decided with my partner to go and live in the south of France, Villefranche-sur-Mer, in 2019 for 2 months, and worked from France. And to be honest, at the point at which I was there, I had exactly the same sort of thought that I was going to just put a few words together, pop an article online about the connections between the south of France and James Bond, which there are many, and that was that. But in fact, what happened was, because I was there for 2 months, the place grabbed me. I took more care over the research, more care over the writing, and then I was lucky enough to introduce myself to Martijn Mulder. So the first book was something with an experiment. It certainly is not like anything that we are doing right now, but from small acorns to large trees grow.
Absolutely. I mean, south of France is one of the most beautiful places on earth, just like graphically, really like that. So what an amazing experience to be there for 2 months.
Yeah.
And then, right. So you were thinking of putting together, where did you even begin? I mean, you're sitting there and presumably I'm picturing this beautiful villa and you're sitting there with your cup of espresso in the morning and you're like, where did you begin planning out just the concept? Jamaica, it's like, where do you begin? Jamaica, for example, is so iconic to James Bond. It's so iconic to Ian Fleming.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm to be honest. How I started out the planning for the book is much the same way as I did the planning for the other books. And I'm a project manager by trade, and it was really just first off to create a list of requirements, a scope, if you will, to list every single last little tiny location. Not just the films, not just the books, but of course specifically to Jamaica, where people close to the history of James Bond, like Ian Fleming, where they lived, where they ate, where they drank, where their friends lived, this, that, and the other, and just to create a huge long list. I then sent that over to Martijn Mulder, just in case I've made any glaring errors or glaring omissions. And then one of the ideas that Martijn had was to order and structure the way in which it was written about in a walking or driving type of order. So that would mean then that none of the locations were talked about in film sequence, but they were talked about in geographical sequence, which means that if someone is really only up in Jamaica in the northeast corner, then you will have a space which is dedicated to that area. And you can either walk, drive, left to right, east to west, and cover it in that way. So once that was structured, which meant that I had to put in 60 or 70 odd locations into Google Maps to make sure that everything did follow on sequentially.
That's a lot of locations.
Well, it is. We'll go into what they are in a moment, but essentially what I wanted from this book, and really the only thing that I was possibly digging for myself a bit of a hole was, I know we all know that GoldenEye was very important to Ian Fleming, and also subsequently the James Bond books, and then subsequently the James Bond films. There is a huge connection, but frankly, I wanted to go deeper than that. I really wanted to find out why, in fact, Jamaica, as a country, as an island, is so synonymous with these subject matters. Why not anywhere else in the world? Ian Fleming was already a well-traveled man. He could have chosen any island in the Caribbean, any island in Southeast Asia, for example. And what I really wanted to understand is, at one point, celebrate GoldenEye, but also find out, where was it that Ian Fleming first visited in Jamaica? What was it about the place that inspired him to live there, buy and build a place? And as part of the thrust of these books, does that place still exist? And more importantly still, can one visit? And what I found out was that in 1943, Ian Fleming was instructed by his superiors to attend a conference in Kingston, Jamaica, at the Myrtle Bank Hotel to to figure out basically the mess that the German U-boats were making of the trade routes between that part of the world and Europe. And during that week, the two chaps, they stayed in a house called Bellevue, which was owned by Ivar Bryce's then wife. And they stayed there for a week. It rained constantly. The fruit trees were dropping their fruit, and the rotting fruit was creating a pungent smell. Most importantly for these guys, there wasn't even any alcohol in the house at the time. On the first night, I think they found some grenadine, which, according to others who have done that part of the research, they drank neat. Obviously, they sorted their provisions out for the ensuing nights. So my self-imposed challenge was to find out whether Bellevue was still available. I knew that this was going to be a long journey, and so the book, while it starts on the north coast in Goldeneye and takes a clockwise route around the island, I knew that as I got close to Kingston, I would hopefully have found where this place was. Now, there are any number of Bellevues in Jamaica, and I got sidetracked by a few. It's supposed to be in the foothills of the Blue Mountains, just north of Kingston. I eventually found it. I was introduced to an American lady, who has started an architect firm in Jamaica. She's bought the land. The place still exists, sort of, but you can visit. Should one wish to take a pilgrimage to Jamaica to see what first inspired Ian Fleming to consider Jamaica a potential home, you can go up and visit this house on this hill and overlook the city of Kingston, the South Caribbean Sea.
That's amazing. My father grew up in Jamaica. He was evacuated during the war, and in 1943 he was in Kingston with his mother, and his father came out to visit at that point. So I mean, I find that so fascinating that, you know, my father was living in Kingston at the same time Ian Fleming was in Kingston, even though my father was like 5 years old, so I don't think they hung out. But
wow. Okay. Oh, wow.
But that's amazing. So you can go right to. So what is Bellevue like as a house? It's. I mean, I saw the pictures of Goldeneye, and it's like it's a magnificent resort now. But back in those days, it was quite humble. It didn't even have glass in the windows. So.
Quite, yes. I'm not too sure what Bellevue was like back in the day. And to be honest, when I sort of asked the two questions, does it still exist and can one still visit? The answers are sort of and yes. The sort of is because the wooden structure of the Great House has gone. What the lady has done is, unlike a lot of other Jamaican people or people developing in Jamaica, they ripped down the old and put in the new. What this lady has done is to fortify the remains, the brick and the stonework remains, and to have this as a sort of central garden feature around which she has built cottages. But the information is in the book, and should one wish to visit the house that Ian Fleming first stayed at, then it is there.
So what was that like for you? So, I mean, I James Bond has always had such a big influence on me. I like that. It almost seems like a pilgrimage, which sounds very pretentious. But you've all of these different James Bond locations all over the world. So what was it like going there?
Jamaica.
Yeah.
Well, I must admit, for this book, I actually haven't been to Jamaica. I have been to Jamaica back in 1989. Which should give you an idea of some of my sort of vintage. I've been working in New York for the summer while I was at university, and at the end of the summer, the mate and me, we got a holiday. We into Jamaica, got a car, and did a tour. I wasn't really fully conscious at that point, one might say, a little bit disorganized, so we weren't really too sure what we were looking to see, but we wanted to have an adventure. So mine was butter flavor. The way in which these books are predominantly structured is for me to find people and speak to them, and this is that which gives the book its sort of soul and its the stories, people's memories, people's the stories, and the people that I try and speak to for each of these locations. I try to get both sides of the story, which is to say, if James Bond visits a beach where he meets a girl, I want to I want to find out who owns or manages that beach, and then I would hopefully also try and find someone who, let's say, filmed at that beach, and just to get both sides of the story. So the thrust is one of research and interviewing.
That's amazing. And I mean, Jamaica has also played the part of other places in the movies and things. I mean, on the Jeff Marshall, I think, does the covers for your books, doesn't he?
He does, yes. Yes.
Yes, he's a wonderful chap and a wonderful artist. Yeah. And he's got that iconic picture of Roger Moore in his tactical polo neck with his, and that's like, to me, growing up, I was like, that's the height of cool. And of course, they filmed the sections of Live and Let Die in Jamaica, but it wasn't set in Jamaica, was it?
That one wasn't, no, no, not at all. It was, what was it, San Monique, I believe. Yeah, that was it.
Yes. So, okay, you're a James Bond fan, and you're thinking, what is going to be my next book, my next reading material about this? What are they going to get out of James Bond in Jamaica?
Well, what I try to do with all of these books is to very much celebrate the country first, and I obviously give a little bit of information of the history, what life was like back in the early days. But this the book that we get in terms of the world of James Bond, it commences from 1943 at the point at which Ian Fleming went to that conference up to present day. I've also introduce other places that are not necessarily Bond related or are tangible, let's say. So, for example, one of the locations that I talk about is the site of the welcome party for the No Time to Die film crew, and that's somewhere near Port Antonio. And that little area is a bar and a restaurant next door to each other, which had been corralled by the production crew and created into this sort of walled-off area. I interviewed both the manager of the bar and the manager of the little restaurant place, the seafood place, and they had a lot of stories. So what I try to do with these books then is to introduce people to the readers, such that if people want to go and visit that little bar stroke restaurant, introduce yourself to the people that work there, and they will have their own stories to share. So it's very much a sort of get into Jamaica. The other thing I also try and do is with the books that Ian Fleming wrote, every now and again there's a road trip, and I very much sort of go into what that road trip is, looking at the old roads and making sure that people do follow what was the road back in the 1950s, as opposed to the bypasses of today, which will then take you through all of the small towns. And there's a section within the book which concentrates on the South Coast, Kingston to Savannah Lamar road trip that James Bond took in The Man with the Golden Gun, the book, with Mary Goodnight on his way to 3.5 Love Lane. So on each of those little towns are spoken about. So it really is. I want to try and celebrate the whole of Jamaica, and not just the 27, let's say, film locations.
I think that's wonderful. And that, you know, I just, as soon as you were saying that, I had flashbacks to reading The Man with the Golden Gun, which I've always enjoyed as a book. And it's like, it did bring the island to life, you know, when James Bond went and drank his red stripe with in that little road thing. So I was going to ask, in this book especially, but I guess it's the same you've written, how are you different, having written the book and done all this work and spoken to all these people and researched everything, compared to before you started it?
How am I? As in what?
No, how are you different? Not physically different, but how is your viewpoint about the world of James Bond, this thing that you've created? What changed and evolved, and what did you learn from writing this particular book that perhaps you hadn't learned before or hadn't thought about before?
Oh gosh, yes, there are a couple of those things. I don't know whether we might be talking at cross purposes, so please stop me if I've misunderstood your question. But going back to when I was looking at the sorting out the scope, that scope sort of breaks itself down into the known knowns and the known unknowns. So going back to that beach, we know that Bond met a girl on the beach, and we know that it was Laughing Waters. Let's say when Bond goes to San Monique, Bond and Quarrel Jr. go on to the beach, but maybe I didn't know exactly where that was, a known unknown. The unknown unknowns are the things that for me, I always look for. I hope for, and part of the interviewing technique, I suppose, that I have developed right from the beginning is the open question, the end question is, what sort of question should I be asking that my lack of knowledge does not know to ask? And that may not deliver anything. But to give you an example, I stayed in touch with, and still in touch with, a chap called Jeremy Francis, who was the Jamaican location manager for No Time to Die. And just staying in touch with him whenever he comes across, whenever anyone comes across a sort of story, hopefully people think, I know that Simon is doing this. Maybe he knows. I should find out. And if indeed he does know. And I had written something very, very slight, maybe just 3 or 4 short and sweet paragraphs about the Caribbean Cement Company tracks, down which, in Dr. No, Sean Connery's James Bond drives his little Sunbeam Alpine being chased by a hearse. I mean, you know what? Not a great deal to talk about. It's a road, it's a little tiny short chase. It's up at a cement company track. Chances are you're not going to be able to get in there. And that was going to be it. And Jeremy called up and he said, are you aware of the connection between the Caribbean Cement Company and Ian Fleming? And I thought, what do you mean, Doctor? No. And he said, no, there's something else much deeper than that. So I put in the search in for that, and what transpires is that the gentleman who's one of the co-founders of that cement company was, during the war, himself a spy who had been instructed by Winston Churchill to go to New York and set up in room 3603 in the Rockefeller Center the British arm of a spy network. And
the British Security Coordination. I'm not
sure. I can't remember now what it was, but ultimately what happened was that one of the gentlemen who was working for this chap, Sir William Stevenson, wrote a book about room 3603, and Ian Fleming wrote the foreword to that book, and it is considered, let's say, that this gentleman may or may not have been one of the 17 or 18 people that inspired Ian Fleming to create the character of James Bond in a certain way. Now, what that meant was that this 3 or 4 paragraphs escalated into much, much more. It also meant that I found a lady who is communications manager or director for the Caribbean Cement Company, who had actually written an article about this gentleman. And she had written the article about this gentleman because someone had found in a back room an oil painting, a portrait of this gentleman, and it just inspired her to go into it, and inspired me then to interview her and to do my own research as well. And I read the book as well, Room 3603. So it is this sort of quite left of field story, which I absolutely love, and I really hope that other people get a kick out of it as well.
I think that's amazing, because you were talking earlier about how you were like, oh, is it even worth writing this book? And then here you are uncovering stuff that people don't even know. I read history at university, and I'm always amazed that there are so many iconic, important things in history that at the time nobody wrote anything down about and stuff like that. And it leaves us decades later wondering, why was this done? Why did and you're creating a resource that will exist in perpetuity, in which so many of these questions and so many of these connections are like saved forever.
Yes, indeed. I mean, as I said at the beginning of this chat, I think I was writing myself into a bit of a corner. One such location was, of course, the aforementioned Bellevue. But quite randomly, I also wanted to find out if indeed 3.5 Love Lane existed. Why on earth would I think that? Because the previous book was Bond in France. Bond in France was introduced with Casino Royale. Casino Royale, as written by Ian Fleming, introduced Bond to the world in a fictional town, in a fictional hotel, in a fictional Casino Royale. Why on earth would there'd be a possibility, a chance in hell that 3.5 Love Lane, a little 2 up and 2 down wooden shack, ever exist? But you know what? I found that too. It did exist.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so, it was a long piece of work. It took the entire length of the writing of the book, and to be honest, I thought I was never going to get it, and I'd actually almost written myself out of it, and said, well, I'm just going to throw the gauntlet down, and I invite other people to do better than I did. But in the end, a couple of people came up and started saying the same thing. but it took about 6-7 months for that to come around.
That's incredible. So, well, I won't keep you too much longer, but I was going to say this book, James Bond in Jamaica, I'm sure when I do my silly Golden Bullets thing this year, it's going to be in the running. And you're in 2024, you helped write the Martin Beswick's book as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I understand that did rather well. Thank you very much indeed for everyone who voted for it.
And the previous year, The Beauty of Bond also won.
Did it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So
right.
you're two. So I owe you some Golden Bullets once I get my stuff together with it. But that's amazing. It just shows that what you are doing is making a real impact among the Bond community and Bond fans everywhere. People clearly gravitate towards it, and what you're writing and creating is impactful.
Thank you very much indeed. I must say that I do have a lot of help. There are a lot of people who have laid the groundwork and have basically sort of helped me quite hugely along the way. And all of these people are thanked hugely at the back of the book.
And I can see like there's a huge stack of thanks and things, and also there's some correlate, like Martin Mulder with the on the tracks of 007 organizes like trips that you can go to different places and things, and obviously your book is going to be the perfect companion piece for that.
Yes, I believe Martin is looking to do a trip in 2026 to Jamaica. It's not been designed yet, but obviously I'll be able to help with that in any way, shape, or form that he wants. Yeah, I actually just come back from one of the trips with him to Turkey, which was absolutely superb. Really good fun. So yeah, there are trips planned.
That is wonderful. Okay, wrapping up finally, where can people get a hold of James Bond in Jamaica?
Right. Okay. So we are currently having problems getting it onto Amazon. There is a technical difficulty between our print company and Amazon. However, right now, this is the Great British Bookshop and also DMD-Digital. Certainly, I can give you the links. Otherwise, on the tracks at 007.com will also be there. But we will be resolving the Amazon issue real shortly. One hopes.
That's good. Well, I will make sure to pop a link down in the description below for everything there, so people can go and grab a copy of it. Thank you so much, Simon, for taking the time to talk to me. And what an incredible thing you have done in your continued journey of doing incredible things. And what an awesome thing you are creating that is going to exist in perpetuity for James Bond fans.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Oh, well, it is an absolute honor. Thank you so much, Simon. And yeah, hopefully this won't be the last time we speak. Maybe our paths will cross one day.
Indeed. All right, all the best.